Well, I appreciate your time today. I'm so sorry I missed yesterday. I had one of those travel days, but I heard that yesterday was just phenomenal. So I'm hoping to start us off with the same energy as you guys had yesterday. However, I did promise I'm not going to make anybody cry, so so that will be good. We'll start off on a positive note. And what we're going to talk about today is I really want to share some stories about employee engagement and take you on a little journey from my experience as an entrepreneur and really building an entrepreneurial family environment culture. And when we were acquired by a Fortune 500 company, you know, how we took that culture and, you know, infused that in the corporate world. And some of the challenges that came with that, and how we addressed it so that we could, you know, continue to keep this culture alive that really helped not only deliver the customer experience, but more importantly, deliver the business objectives for the organization. You know, you can walk into an environment and you can start creating those expectations immediately. And it's really up to each one of us you know, to realize how do we do that and why is that important. So, you know, hopefully we've got the energy level up a little bit and you've met some new people, which is, you know, one of the great things about this conference. And so thank you for humoring me on that. All right, so yesterday, and you know, really most of us, our role is to really focus on customer experience. And so, you know, there's conferences about it. You're reading all about customer experience. Certainly, as in my new role with Ernst & Young, you know, there's companies reaching out to us about, all right, what is customer experience? Help me with journey mapping. But what really surprised me is even with all this focus on customer experience, still, over 60% of customers are not happy with the experience that they have with the companies that they interact with. And so I wanted to kind of just throw the question out there, is, you know, why is this still not working? What is it that's missing? I mean, so one of the challenges we have is that the world is changing so quickly, and customer expectations change quickly. So, you know, I can really relate to, you know, when he was saying, you know, boy, you know, it's just not moving fast enough. How many of us have done that, right? When, you know, we download a new app or, you know, we're trying to interact with a company, even traveling, you know, so you pick a new seat and you expect if you're online and you pick a new seat, you immediately can go to your app and everything just follows you. So I thought it was just a great reminder of, you know, one of the challenges we have is that customer expectations are changing really quickly. So today, we're going to talk about really engaging the whole enterprise. So yesterday, and you talked a lot about customer experience and all the interactions and developing those relationships and engaging with your customers. But it's also about engaging more than just your customers to deliver on your brand. It's engaging employees, it's engaging partners, and it's engaging vendors. And why do we do this? So it isn't just because we like to build relationships or we want to create a great place to work, we want to have a great experience, but there is a true financial benefit to enterprise engagement and engaging all of the key stakeholders. And there's a lot of research, and I'll be sharing some statistics with you before we get to the stories because I love facts, because facts really give you credibility and help you tell the story better. But, you know, high engagement firms have higher revenues than low engagement firms. They have higher profits. And they tend to perform better in the stock market. There's a couple of different index funds that tracks whether it's ACSI, which is a customer satisfaction index fund. The Enterprise Engagement Alliance also has a fund that they track. And companies that focus on employee, customer, partner, and vendor engagement have higher stock performance over a 6 to a 12-year period. So it's sustainable. So why does it matter? First of all, companies that focus on employee engagement, so companies that we're all familiar with, Starbucks, right? Starbucks is a really interesting case study. When you look, you know, at the founder, created a great culture and environment, right? We go to Starbucks not to buy coffee. We're really there for what? When you walk into a Starbucks, why does anybody... What's that? Yeah, a community, right? So, that's what they're selling, is they're selling a community. They're selling the relationship you have with the barista. And you pay $4 for a cup of coffee to share in that environment. And, and it shows that, the earnings of companies are 2.5 times higher, those that focus on employee engagement, versus those that don't. If you look at the annual productivity costs for businesses in the United States, disengagement costs U.S. companies billions, hundreds of billions of dollars a year in lost productivity. So employees drive the experience, and leaders are starting to get that. They're starting to get that engagement is a critical factor in the process of delivering not only their customer experience and delivering the brand promise, but also delivering bottom line metrics. But the challenge we've had about engagement is that it's kind of that warm and fuzzy. It's the soft side of leadership. And so that's where, engagement has been trailing within, certainly the corporate environment because it's hard to measure. And so the challenge leaders have is, well, what is the framework for engagement? How do we create that, and how do we track it? How do we measure it? How do we break down all the different silos within the organization so that you can get everybody moving in the same direction? Because, employees in the call center certainly have different drivers of engagement than employees that are, in accounting or in the manufacturing that are out in the field. So it's understanding all those. So the foundation for the framework, to really be able to start understanding employee engagement and linking employee engagement to customer engagement to your bottom line is all about creating a culture. And so with cultures, when you think of employee engagement, or when you say that you want to create a positive culture for your employees, what are some of the misperceptions or things that you hear? Anybody?
One person only.
What's that?
One person only.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one person's responsibility. A lot of times you hear that it's HR, that it's HR's responsibility to, create the culture and understand what's going on with the employees. What else? I know one of the things that I heard when I went into the corporate world is, well, you're creating entitlement. If you treat your employees well and you do all of this, they're going to expect it. They're going to expect you, to continue to do that. So people think that engagement is about entitlement. Another one, engagement is driven by compensation. So have you heard that? Where, well, we're paying you. We're paying you to do your job, and that's all we should have to do. You're getting a paycheck, so come to work and do your job. Another one is satisfied employees are engaged. So if you think about that, so you can have an employee who is satisfied, right? They work 9 to 5. They come every single day. Great attendance. They follow your processes. Yet, they won't go above and beyond to help a customer because they're satisfied. You see it a lot, even in fast food restaurants, where well, this is the process. I'm here, I'm checking people out, I'm ordering, but there isn't really any interaction. Sorry I missed the presentation of Chick-fil-A yesterday, but the stories that I heard from that presentation, a satisfied employee there probably wouldn't stay working there very long. Unless you have that fire where you want to go above and beyond and create those relationships. So a satisfied employee isn't engaged. And finally, another one the reason that you focus on engagement is to make employees happy. Right? Another common misperception. The reason you focus on engagement is to deliver sustainable financial results. And I learned this lesson the hard way as an entrepreneur. I thought, if I create this great environment where people love to come to work, and the business I was in was a call center, so you can all, imagine that environment. And I thought, well, if I create this family environment where people love to be there, we'll be successful. And I can tell you, I almost lost everything. We had a great place to work. People loved coming into the office. I had stray cats that were out in the parking lot that I ended up rescuing, and I would bring them in. And so if somebody was having a bad day, they could come back to my office and they could pick a cat out of one of the cages. We had people could bring their dogs into the office. Really a great environment, but we were losing money like crazy. And so finally, I said, this just isn't going to work. So how do I create this same culture, yet have people linked and engaged to delivering financial results? And so that's the story that I want to take you on, kind of the journey for the rest of this. And so what I want to walk you through today is a framework that I developed over about 7 years. And the reason it takes 7 years is, one, as you learn and build on each step, we were able to improve upon it, but then also eventually pull in some technology. And so I want to tell you that story of how we were able to deliver sustainable business growth and results. So over a 7-year period, our team earned 6 J.D. Power call center certifications. So one of only 5 call centers in the country to be able to do that 6 years in a row. What I'm most proud of is the team that I left, I guess about 8 months ago. They just earned their 7th. So we know it's a process that's sustainable and that can really be infused into the organization. So more importantly than that, we delivered improved financial results. So we had over a 300% increase in bottom line growth, so pretty significant. Became about 18% of earnings for a Fortune 500 company, all driven out of the call center. We reduced our costs 43% and improved our sales, our sales conversion rate 83% over 7 years. So again, just hard using soft skills to really deliver those hard bottom line numbers. So how does this work? There's really 2 components to driving performance. One we've talked a lot about is customer experience, and I'm just going to focus on the employee experience part. And so the first thing you have to do is build an intentional culture. And the question that we always get is, well, how do you build an intentional culture? And there's really 3 ways. First is the environment, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Second is communication. And third is the emotional environment. And that's always more of a challenge. So the physical environment. Physical environment is the things that we take for granted. But the minute you walk through the door in your office, office building or the floor that you work on, the minute you walk through that door, there should be an intentional environment that you're creating that matches the brand attributes and the brand promise of your organization. So when you walk in, what is it that employees see and what is it that customers see when they walk in? So, from the colors on the wall, a lot of call centers that I've been going into in the last 7 months, I'm still amazed what they look like. They're dirty. They're usually beige walls. The information that's up on the walls, so you can tell that at one point somebody said, hey, we really should start putting up our values and we should share that we want them to provide great customer experience. So we'll start putting up metrics and performance. And it's amazing. I take pictures every time I go around. And so it's 2013 now. The oldest I found is 2009, so they have 2009 data on the wall. So, I mean, that's just amazing to me. I mean, how would I feel as an employee? I walk in, and what I'm looking at are statistics from 2009. If they don't care, I mean, why should I care about, what my results are for the day? So, looking at that environment is really critical. So some may say that you're creating an entitled workforce if you provide a great place to work. But I, argue and have experienced the exact opposite. Have your employees participate in actually helping you design that workspace. What colors do they want to see? What chairs do they want to sit in? How do they want to be grouped to be most productive? When they're on break, do they have to go, downstairs to a dingy break room? Or, can they sit, in comfortable couches and be able to log on and check the internet? How many of you have seen the new Delta gates when you travel? Are those not incredible? I tweeted about it yesterday because I was at LaGuardia, and there I was. I mean, I'm literally sitting in a comfortable chair. I didn't have to go and find a place to plug in to recharge. Everything is right there. And then they have the iPads where I can order something to drink and it will be at my seat in 10 minutes. So to me, that's what creating an environment is about. So Delta has taken their voice of the customer and really listened to what their customers wanted. And we need to do the same thing for employees. So making sure that the minute you walk through the door, we had a sign above our door that said, through these doors walk the greatest employees in the world. So how would you feel as an employee or even as somebody that was coming in to interview when you walk up and you saw this huge sign that said that? You would think, wow, I'm pretty special. This is what else is unique here? And you walk into a call center, and I know I'll get pushback on this, but everybody's dressed professionally. The guys are in shirts and ties, women are professionally dressed. You would think, this is a call center? What do they do here? But it's intentional because it represented our brand. And so our brand promise is, we wanted customers to have a different experience. And so we had to have a different experience in our work environment. So the physical environment that sometimes we pass off to facilities is really important to work together with facilities to make sure that the environment truly reflects the environment that you want your customers eventually to experience. Communication. So communication is critical. You cannot communicate enough about your values, and linking your values to the vision of the organization. Communicating how the actions today help contribute to your goals, and how do you measure those? Communicating that your KPIs, where are you on those today? How far do you have to go in order to deliver those? Communicating what behaviors you expect. One of the things that I love to do, and since I've moved into consulting I really miss, is I used to meet with every new hire class that we had. So every new hire at the utility. So it didn't just have to be the call center. And we would go through this little exercise, and I would ask them, all right, what type of environment in business do you want to be part of where TGIF turns into TGIM, right? Thank God it's Monday. I can't wait to get into work. And so everybody'd start listing descriptions, and I'd put them up on the board. So they would say, they want a positive environment, they want a productive environment, they want to be part of a successful company, benefits, and literally you'd get 40 or 50 descriptions of what people were looking for where it would really make them engaged, where they could not wait to get into work. And then we'd go back and I'd say, all right, how do you know if a positive environment exists? So what behaviors and interactions would you need to experience so you would feel that this was a positive environment? And, it's the basics. They would say, will somebody would smile and say hello, even if they don't know me? Or if somebody sees that I'm new, takes the time to help me out, show me where something is. Teamwork was another big one. Here's what's amazing, and I did this for 7 years. Out of 7 years, I think 3 times pay was on that list. So to me, that was just really amazing, is people aren't looking for compensation. That's a given. That's our job, to make sure that we're providing, a wage where people, one, can have a quality of life, but two, what's important to people is how we make them feel. It's not what they're doing and how we're measuring them, but it's how we make them feel. So we'd go through this exercise, and then I said, we're going to get back together in 90 days. And we're going to go through this whole list as a team, and we're going to identify what exists and what doesn't exist. And if one of these actions or behaviors doesn't exist, it's not going to be, well, how come, and pointing fingers. It's, what are you going to do to make sure that other people are experiencing that? And so by communicating in that way, you're starting to get everybody involved in the culture. It isn't just, from the top down or one person that drives it. And when you're not intentionally creating that, that's typically what happens, right? I mean, the environment you work in usually takes on the personality of the strongest personality on the floor, for example. And when it's not intentional, that could be not a great personality. So you can have an environment where people are managed by fear. That's where the office politics comes in. And so creating an intentional culture gets everybody involved and accountable for the environment that they're working in. So, and communicating that is really critical. Making sure that with communication that you have a formal matrix. And I know it probably sounds hokey, but actually knowing, well, what format are you going to use to communicate your values in action? How does an employee even know when they're being flexible or when they're being respectful? What does that look like? And how can you bring those to life and link those to the experience that they're having? So having that formal communication plan of how and when, so during your weekly meetings, what is it that you communicate? During your quarterly meetings, what are you communicating? Is it just your financial results? Or are you also tying in what's happening with employee engagement? And is there a way to track that? The third way to build an intentional culture is the emotional environment. And this is the one that can be challenging, just because, the emotional side of business, a lot of people think, like there's no crying in baseball, right? There's no emotions in business. We're here to do a job. But the people, doing the job are people. So there are emotions in business. And, you need to harness that in a positive way to really deliver results. And I think you saw a great example with that with the speaker yesterday from Chick-fil-A. Now that is an emotional commitment and culture that they're building. And they're doing that intentionally so that, why? Not to create a great place for people to work, but so people want to come back. When you're thinking, where do I want to go for dinner? You think of Chick-fil-A. So how do you address the emotional needs within a company? One of the things we did, and again, so setting the context in a call center environment, is, there's millions of metrics, right? So our employees are measured for every second. And they have their supervisors. So what we did is we said, we really need to create a role for a coach. And the coach's role is to help the people that they coach succeed. And success looks different for everybody. Success could mean that I'm coaching you to realize this might not be the best fit for your strengths. And that's okay. So what are your strengths and how can we help you? So we created this coaching role that reported in through training. And it was one of my favorite roles because they didn't have any discipline responsibilities. So what they did is they would meet with the employees, and the ratio was about 1 coach to 32 people. And they would set the business goals, so they knew exactly what they needed to accomplish for the business. But they also set personal goals. And so we were able to start motivating and linking people, what they were accomplishing at work, how that could help them meet their personal goals. And I'll just give you 3 really quick examples. So a couple of years ago, when we captured all of the personal goals, there were 3 key themes. Most people wanted to pay down their credit card debt. They also wanted to lose weight and be healthier. And the third one is they wanted to go back to school. So, as a company, what we decided to do was support those 3 categories of goals. And we brought in, for people that wanted to pay off credit card debt, we brought in a financial planner, and we had lunch and learns, and helped them set up a budget based on what they were making, based on the bonus structure that we had. And then we started measuring, all right, how are you making progress on, paying off your debt? And it was amazing. We just, you would think that people wouldn't want to share that, but there was so much camaraderie and people helping each other because they wanted to pay off that credit card debt. So it really created a great environment. The second one, people wanted to be healthier. They wanted to lose weight. So we did a couple of things there. We brought in a personal trainer who gave some exercises people could do while they were at work. But the one I liked the best is we had a nutritionist come in and went through everything in our cafeteria and identified, what would be a better choice for people that wanted to eat healthier. And so that was really helpful. And then we tracked people on, losing weight and recognized them when they met their different goals. So again, just different ways. It really didn't cost the company anything to do, but it's a way, to support that emotional side personally so they become engaged and committed to the organization. And why? Simply because we cared what their personal goals were. And then obviously we still measured our business goals, which is where the coach came in, because they knew they had an advocate. And that's really what it's about, is creating those positive interactions so that our employees become advocates for the company. It's really a great way to help focus on costs as well when you think about it. So building an intentional culture, there's 3 ways. So there's, the physical environment, communication, and the emotional environment. So the first couple of years that we were part of the utility, so after being acquired. So we had this great culture. This is how we built it, really focused on linking these 3 things, making sure that our brand was being delivered and represented in all of these 3 ways. Yet the challenge was that our CEO came in one day and took a tour of the call center and said, wow, Barbara, your cheerleading's really paying off. So as you can imagine, that made me a little angry because, engagement isn't about cheerleading, right? Caring about employees, this is hard work. Linking employee behavior to your business goals so that everybody in the organization is aligned and empowered to meet those metrics. So I thought, God, there has to be a way that I can communicate, how hard our team is working, that this isn't about just cheerleading and creating a great environment and playing music and having food. There was so much more to it. And so I was able to learn about a technology called Enterprise Feedback Management. And this technology allowed us to combine all of our survey data, so centralize our data, and then included analytics. So, now we were able to go from kind of creating this intentional culture where just intuitively we knew it was the right thing to do, but how could we communicate to the executives that what we were doing and if we could measure our employee engagement, and if my dream was to be able to say to the CEO that, well, if we could move, 5% of our employees from, being ambivalent to really being engaged, that our productivity would increase 20% and we'd reduce our cost per call. That was my dream. When he came in and said, great job with cheerleading, I wanted to throw back financial facts of what we were doing. And so technology is really what enabled us to do that. And so what we were able to do is there were 3 ways we started capturing and measuring our employee feelings. So we already knew what they did, right? We have their operational metrics. But how could we capture and be able to really know where our culture was? And so there are 3 ways we did that. The first way is we had something called employee voice. An employee voice was an always-on, always-available portal. So our employees could access this portal anytime, and they could submit a complaint, a compliment, or a suggestion. And those were all tracked and categorized and trended, so we could see what was happening. But more importantly is after they would submit one of those, they would take a brief 6-question engagement survey. And that engagement survey was scored on a scale of 0 to 10. So then we could trend how our engagement was. So if you think about a heartbeat slide, so every week I could print out a report and see how we're doing. And if the engagement went down, you could click on that and see, all right, why is the engagement down? Was it a decision that we made that we didn't communicate properly, which typically 9 out of 10 times employee engagement decreases because of a lack of communication or poor communication. And so we could put actions in place that actually would then improve and impact engagement. So the power of it wasn't so much tracking our engagement scores on an ongoing basis. It was we knew that were we doing the right things and how quickly could we recover. So really important to be able to get that sense directionally, how are we doing? So obviously we're only getting the feedback from people that communicate with us. So we needed to make sure that at least twice a year we conducted employee pulse surveys. And these weren't satisfaction surveys. We didn't want to know if our employees were satisfied. They were driver and outcome-based questions. We wanted to know, what were the key drivers of our most engaged employees? Because once we could identify what those key drivers were, we could create more interactions and more environments where they felt that way. And if we did that, then could we link that to improve performance? So we had, a channel for employees to communicate with us all the time, even when we weren't asking them something. Then we had our more formal twice-a-year surveys, so we could get a really good gauge of how we were doing as an organization. And the third way, and most importantly, was employee involvement. So, when you do surveys, as you all know, or whether it's customer or employee, the challenge is there's so much data. How do you know what to act on? So there's a couple of ways we did that. One is we got our employees involved, and they were the ones that actually helped us prioritize what should we do? What 3 things could we do this quarter that would impact our engagement and improve the environment and improve the results that the team was achieving? So we got our employees involved to make sure, that they were accountable and they had some skin in the game. And it wasn't just us trying to figure out, all right, what of all of these things that came up, what are the 2 or 3 things we should do? So it's getting employees involved to help them communicate and deliver the results that you need. So so we had a way to collect data, but But the technology then, the analytics, is really what transformed the organization. So as much as I love people and the relationship and emotional side of business, I love analytics because it gives you the ability to bring facts into the conversation. So you'll be able to address the rational side of business as well as the emotional side of business. And so with our analytics, we were able to look at all of our data. We combined our operational data with all of the survey data. And the analytical tool then would go through all of that and kind of make the invisible visible. Would bring up, combine those and identify trends in our data that we could act on. So trends that would give us a clue in terms of, all right, what if we improved our benefits program? What impact would that have on our engagement score? And then what impact would that have on increased productivity, on sales per representative, on our turnover? Understanding, do you have employees that are looking to leave in the next 6 months? So really trying to identify the key drivers of engagement. And when you look at the analytics side of things, it also identifies new metrics. So we were able to go from running our call center environment based on your traditional metrics of service level, average handle time, to more outcome-based metrics. We listened for behaviors, and we listened for whether they were closing sales, referring customers, and looking for outcome-based metrics versus the transactional metrics. And as you continue to improve performance, it's just that same cycle of, all right, making sure that the environment you're creating from a culture perspective, ties into the experience that you need to deliver. So this was the ROI of engagement. As I had said, that my dream was to be able to link what the drivers were from a culture perspective to bottom line performance. And so here's what we were able to do. These were the drivers for our most engaged employees. So our most engaged employees wanted to feel respected. They wanted to feel accepted. They wanted to feel confident, and they wanted to provide helpful service. So once we knew that those were the 4 key drivers of our most engaged employees, and if we could improve on those and create more interactions of those 4 environments, our metrics improved. So our employee engagement impacted our productivity. It impacted our quality. We had less turnover and higher satisfaction. And that drove our bottom line. So we were able to use this approach to get investments. One of our challenges is that we had 12 systems in our call center that employees had to use to take care of a customer. So having 12 systems doesn't create somebody feeling that they can help a customer. If you're constantly navigating multiple systems, if the data you have in systems isn't accurate. So we knew we had to put an integrated front end so that our reps just had one system and one tool with consistent data that they could use to take care of a customer. So being able to identify that and know that if we could have 350 people that now had a way to provide helpful service, that we could improve our quality, we could improve our productivity, and most importantly, improve the bottom line metrics that our executive team cared about, which was profitability, our sales growth, reducing our cost per call, and finally, even reducing our cost per sale and improving that. So, being able to have a framework in a way that really focuses on employee engagement. And one of the things that we learned through this was that employee engagement is the leading indicator for customer experience and our business metrics. And so when we overlaid all of our business metrics over a 4-year time period, when our employee engagement went down, there was a 60 to a 90-day lag to our business metrics. So we knew then that if we focused first on the employee side of it and really understood what drove them to produce, that they would deliver the customer experience that we were expecting, and in return, we would get the financial results. So with that, I know we're running out of time a little bit, so I just want to wrap up real quickly. One, what are the 4 things that we learned through this? One is employees determine the success or failure of your brand with every interaction. So employees are critical to your success. You need to create an intentional culture. Don't just let it happen. Make sure that the environment you create and what you're communicating and your interactions with your employees is intentional. And you're creating, you're creating more positive interactions, so you're increasing the positive interactions you have with employees and decreasing the negatives that are within the environment. And you do that by connecting, making sure that you're listening to your employees. You still have to link that to all the customer experience and also to your business objectives to really drive that bottom line result. And then finally, information is not knowledge unless you can act on it. So making sure that when you're using analytical tools and you're looking at the information, that you find a way to act on it and actually follow and measure it. So with that, thank you very much.